as we did. No, even they had personnel change.
It's only because they're screwed.
I had problems.
I think that in itself is inspiring to people as well. I mean, I've been used to inspire me anyway. I mean, I know that if bands were constantly changing personnel, I used to think, well, what's wrong with their general ideas? What's wrong with their thinking then? You know, why? I mean, I felt that with the pop group. I felt very sort of disillusioned when they, you know, didn't hold it together, because I used to really, I never liked their music very much, but I used to very much respect what they were trying to do, and I felt really disappointed when they ceased to do it, because it meant that obviously, you know, there was a big ego somewhere in there. Well, that's what I thought. You know, and I think that probably was the case. You know,
or that being successful simply becomes an end in itself.
Yes, I'm not sure that did happen with them.
Or the means to becoming successful starts to become the end because you become obsessive about it.
Yeah.
So if the band, if Crass can't play concerts anymore, they can release records still?
Yes. Yeah.
And they are about to?
Well, we are about to. I mean, we've had material hanging around, stuff that the thing we're about to release, we finished work on at the beginning of the year, and we haven't had the money and been able to risk, you know, financially putting it out, which, I mean, we can afford just about to put it out now. And that we're not going to do anything else until basically we pay back our debts, because it feels wrong, you know. I mean, I think unless something is, if something isn't self-supporting, then
because yes, I mean, sorry, just pick up on that a minute, because it was, I always understood that you were a self-supported, you were a self-supporting group, and that you had, as far as I knew, you had as much control over your records and how they were released and what price they should be sold at, and I mean, right down the line, more than any other group that
absolute total control.
Because obviously this was part of your ideology, and you were able to impose that.
Yeah. Well, we have imposed it, and I mean that is the case.
That still is the case.
Yes. What has happened, however, is that
how from being self-supporting, you now say that Crass is in debt.
Yeah, I mean,
is this simply the fact of not having put out records, or is?
No, it's simply the fact of spending huge amounts of. I mean, for example, we produced a record by a band called Hit Parade. You know, we wanted to put a greater focus on what was happening in Ireland, in Northern Ireland. We put out a single by Hit Parade. If we looked at our books, the last band we should have been putting a record out by was Hit Parade, because they sold less than any other band we'd put out. But we weren't looking at the books, we were looking at the political situation. We spent an enormous amount of money. I mean, it was, well, in our terms, an enormous amount of money. I mean, probably 10,000 or something like that, you know, on producing the record. That's a lot for us. And I mean, I don't know how many we've actually sold of it, you know.
I think it's 1,600.
We can't sell it. I mean, it's great. I mean, we'll give you a copy. It's great. It's great music. You know, it's very. We deliberately sort of disco orientated it, etc., make it accessible. But I mean, the ideas aren't accessible. I mean, they're not. People don't want to hear about Northern Ireland. We know they don't want to hear about Northern Ireland, which is why we did it. We used to.
But that's, I mean, sorry. That's in essence what you were doing yourselves.
Yeah.
For a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And
we could all.
You weren't addressing those ideas, I think.
No, we could. Well, we could
You
always.
just said that you had tried to make that record accessible. find whether that was perhaps
No, I don't think.
That was the guy's idea too. It came from him. He wanted to do it that way.
yeah.
But our ideas alone weren't enough. I mean, we didn't know. I mean, we were sometimes criticised. Well, we were certainly criticised by Hit Parade for not making, Northern Ireland sufficient of an issue in our material. I mean, we certainly never avoided the subject, but we didn't make it an issue, and a major issue, simply because we don't know about it enough. So we basically said, well, okay, then you do it. We haven't got the information. We're not living there. We can give a sort of second-hand view of it, but it's much more important. If we'd done it, we'd have sold 20 times more. But that's not the point. The point is that he and the band were the people who are living it. They're the people who also got to take the result of living with it. I mean, they got to take the flak, so they know what to say effectively, how to say it, how their covert action should be, etc., etc. I mean, there's a lot of danger of people, sort of living in the southeast of England, to start sort of pontificating about the situation in Northern Ireland, as you must know. Well, it's financial suicide to do something like that. Well, I mean, we have a very good arrangement with the studio, whereby we effectively can work on credit. Well, I mean, the reason we're in the shit is that we've been working on credit for too long. And I mean, with all due respect to the studio, they're quite happy for us to go on doing that. They're not saying you can't come in. We're not happy about doing it because if effectively we can't finance our own affairs, then we're fundamentally sort of putting forward it's a sort of dishonesty. I mean, if you can understand that.
There's also the thing of having worked. I mean, that's the currency we've used for the last 8-9 years, working in the music business, working with records. 2,000 sales of a record in our terms is not terrific. It's certainly historically not a good sale for a record. And so, if those ideas, in our terms, they're only reaching 2,000 people, then maybe there is another avenue, or there should be another avenue that we can use somewhere, somehow, that will get those ideas out better. And so, to simply say, well, with record producers, with record makers, I'm a guitarist, he's a drummer, we've got to keep going, this we've got to do. It would seem crazy, to put aside the money issue. We can't afford to do it, but even if we could, why just keep ploughing them out for 2,000 or 1,000 or 500 or however many?
I mean, one of the reasons we sold so many records about 3 or 4 years ago was because there wasn't that sort of choice. Our records were uncomfortable. People did want them, but they also didn't want them. The ideas were uncomfortable, and what's happened over the past 3 or 4 years is that things have become diluted. People are catering for the people who don't want the heavy stuff anymore.
Well, that was evident on that John Peel show, because it sounded, I mean, if you didn't, I couldn't hear the words anyway, but what I could hear of the words was, people wanted that music, but they just didn't want the fucking ideas to go with it, so you remove the ideas and you plod some sort of the old rock and roll cliches on top of it, and you've got sort of a saleable commodity, that sort of happened, so it is quite possible that a large number of the people who used to buy our records, bought them because they were excited by the sounds, the weird, strange, noisy noise of Crass, which has now been, the message has been removed. You don't have to buy that. You can just buy some blah about, the girl down the road in the Corvette car or whatever it is. And that's a better commodity, and it is a better commodity, when I was thinking in terms of commodity.
No, ironically, we've just done a load of reader research which backs that up completely. Which people, our readers.
But that's frightening, isn't it?
Yes, they are not interested, and neither do they associate. They no longer associate rock music with ideas, and they just regard it as entertainment. They don't believe that it has any social force.
But
the tragic thing is
that it doesn't matter what people believe. There does come a point that punk